about story relating to your brand. So there's 3 things that you need to remember when it comes to your story. 1, your story shapes how people see you, okay? So the second one is that your story is powerful. There is power in that story. It takes your audience to where you want them to go, okay? And then 3 is that stories persuade and influence. So you have the opportunity, by telling your story, you take the control into your hands, and you can basically control how your audience perceives you and how they see you, and what parts of you they get to see, what you get to hold back from them, and what you get to share with them. So even though we want you to be true, and I'll get to you in just 1 second, but even though we want you to be truthful, you can always decide how much truth you want to give and how much you kind of want to keep back, especially when you're talking about your brand as a company, right? Go ahead.
I was going to ask you to repeat those first.
Okay, sure. So the first one is that it shapes how people see you / your brand. 2, your story is powerful, okay, because it takes your audience directly to where you want them to go, right? And then 3, stories persuade and influence. Okay, so it shapes how people see you and your brand, and this is how you connect with your audience, right? Because your audience is human. So the way that you connect with your audience is through your story, right? Through the emotional connection. Your voice helps create a brand culture. And this is where we talk about the words that you're using. So for instance, when you're gonna go ahead and create a survey to determine who your, the customer value proposition and who your ideal customer is, what words are they using? Are they saying, that's hot, or that's cool, or that's fancy? Like, what are those adjectives that they're using to describe what they want and what your brand is? Because those are the same adjectives you want to use over and over and over again to attract them to you, okay? This kind of plays into the whole idea of Instagram and social media and hashtags. What hashtags are relevant to your brand or to your business? And that's how people find you on social media. So it's the same kind of idea, and using the right words for your brand, okay? So do you want to position yourself or your brand as the industry expert, as a caring service provider, or as the highest quality? So you kind of have to determine, what do I want to do, right? Do I want to be an expert in my field, or do I want to simply be the best, quality of this particular item, okay? And then how are you going to do that? So there's 3 ways that you're going to determine your brand voice. Do you want to write this down? Or? So does anybody really know what your voice is? To have a specific, what is your brand voice?
Can you give us an example on what you mean?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, that's what I want you to give me.
What's
So
your voice?
because you might not know what brand voice means. So what does brand voice mean? Like, how can you tell me, like, what do you think that means? Go ahead.
The language or the jargon or the way in which you speak or reach your customer.
Exactly. Okay.
The
So
language.
you're getting, yeah. Go ahead. Keep going.
Like, I feel that it's more like when you talk to a child or on a child level, you relate to them on their level. My dad told me, like, to be a chameleon on different people, you might have to act a certain way based on who you speak to. The way I speak to my mom is not the way I speak to my best friend. I might cuss at my best friend, but my mom, I'm just gonna be like, yes, ma'am.
You're on. Exactly. Absolutely. So, you ready? Tone is the first thing, and that is the personality of your voice.
Can you say that again?
Tone. So she's gonna write it down.
Oh, okay.
So the way to identify your brand voice, it comes in 3. So 1 is tone, which is your personality. Okay, so how does your personality come out? Because, this is one thing that I think was very different about Jennifer and I as far as our backgrounds in writing. I never had formal writing. I studied business. My degree, I went to UM and I got my bachelor's in marketing. So I wasn't really actively writing when I was getting my undergrad. So when I started writing, I started blogging, and my blog was super casual, funny. Like I wanted to be, just very lighthearted and funny, but I was talking about really deep and personal things in my life because I had quit my job to travel with my husband as he pursued a career in baseball. So we were living the minor league life, which was terrible. And we were living with like 2 other baseball players and their wives and our dog and 3 cats. And I mean, it was quite the experience. It's not that luxurious, trust me. And that was really my tone. Whereas Jennifer comes from the military and writing in a very journalistic tone. So we had 2 very different writing styles, okay? The other portion, or the other component of your voice is the rhythm. Do you speak fast? Do you speak slow? The rhythm and the pitch, the how long are your sentences. Some people like to write really short, punctuated sentences. Some people like to draw them out. I don't know if you guys have ever seen sentences that are literally like a paragraph in length, but if you go back, it's really just 1 sentence. So that's the rhythm. Yeah, go please.
So with rhythm, there's also power in that because it's like a cadence. Okay, so if you're trying to prove a point, repetition is something that you can use. Okay, so I can't even think. Okay, so we were writing our bio. We were writing our bio for the profile that they're gonna do on us. I haven't seen that, by the way. So we were writing our bio, and I deliberately used repetition. She chopped it. I put it back in, just so you know. But anyway.
I actually really like repetition, but sometimes you miss the point. Like sometimes you can, and I'm not saying you did, but I'm just saying it has to be done in a certain way where it's obvious that you're using repetition.
So like in this instance, I said I was trying to prove, with as many differences as we have, how many commonalities we also found.
I didn't like it, but that's a personal
So I
choice.
said, and she might have chopped it too because it was really short. So I said, we both are this, we both have that, we both do this, we both do that, and it was kind of like da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and that was, I was trying to point it out, saying repeat, 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 because it's same, 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 same. That was just a creative choice of technique. You can use that to your advantage though. So if you are trying to drill home a point, repetition is a way to do that, and you can do that in short, punchy phrasing or sentences. If you are trying to talk about something that was overwhelming, okay, and it's an overwhelming experience that you want to share on your social media, you can just, I would write it like I say it. So if I'm telling you a story and it was an exhausting experience, that's probably going to be 1 extremely long run-on sentence. Oh my gosh, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened, blah, 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 because it picks up the pace, it conveys that it's like a lot to digest, and it's still giving the same message, but you're deliberately presenting it in a way that's also overwhelming to your reader. So they can feel how you felt in that situation. Does that make sense? I wish I had like better examples prepared, but this is kind of on the fly.
Well, but you can elicit that emotion in your writing by, like you said, having a really fast sentence that just keeps going and going and going and going, because then all of a sudden you gave your reader anxiety, and suddenly they felt what you felt in that very moment, right? So there's power in those words. Are you good with that rhythm, or do you have anything else to add?
No.
Okay. So then the third is vocabulary. And vocabulary is what are the words that you like to use, right? What are the stories that you like to tell? Now, I don't know how many of you are active readers, but a lot of times you're going to notice that there are some readers that you really like because of the vocabulary that they use, the way that they use their words, the diction, right? And then there's some that you're like, oh my gosh, I have to look at a dictionary every 5 seconds because I have no idea what any of these words are that they're using. And although that is exciting to me because that gives me an opportunity to go learn a new word, not everybody's going to like that. They're like,
Nerd alert.
I'm like, oh my gosh, that's another word, you know? But I've literally read books like that where I have spent more time looking up what the meaning of the words are that they're using than reading the book, because I'm like, oh my gosh, like, so that speaks to that person's voice, right? They're a very sophisticated, high-level, intelligent voice.
Well, and if I can speak on that too, you are teaching your customers the vocabulary and the culture of your brand. Okay, so when you use certain terms to describe it, or when you have certain words to describe your packaging, okay, like we have the 2-for-1 deal, and you do 2 for 1, then they're gonna know what that means every time they see it. You're training your audience to speak your language. Same thing, and we'll get into branding a little bit more, but your colors, that's your signature, right? So our colors are blue and yellow. I was actually gonna wear red today, but didn't. So, but yeah, so we're trying to give our signature stamp, the font that you use. Yeah, and I get into this a little bit later about your style sheet and all of that. But these are all things. So beyond what your logo looks like, beyond you know, what colors you use, the consistency of your brand also comes out in your vocabulary. Okay, so when we talk about, when I talk about the trauma writing workshop, I want to reference it by title every time. Writing through your trauma. Because it's a sentence, but it's also the title of my product. So writing through your trauma is a workshop, is a course that we're going to be offering. And it tells you exactly what it is. And if I want to start abbreviating that, I introduce it the first time. I give it a little, you know, parenthetical reference where it has just the letters, okay? The rest of the time, when we're limited on character space, I'm using, what? WTYT. So that's what I mean by vocabulary, you know, the language that you're using.
Okay. Now the other thing too is email marketing is becoming really popular now. It's actually, and I don't want to say more popular, but it is extremely important as a social media, because building your list helps you control your audience and who you actually have access to on a regular basis into their inbox. So for instance, there's a lot of people out there who will send out emails knowing that their followers and their subscribers are women. So for instance, I might send, if I have a following of all women, I might say, hey girl, what's up, like in my writing, and that's part of my voice. It's very casual, it's very much to a woman, right? Now, when you're talking, think about, what do you say typically? Like when you're gonna introduce yourself, or you're gonna say hi, what is your welcome? Is it hi, hey, what's up, how's it going? Like, what are these little words and phrases and isms that you typically use? And maybe your brand is more formal, and you would never be caught dead saying, hey, what's up? Like that is way too casual for your brand. But there are brands that's the perfect thing to start with, right? Did you have a question?
I was just gonna say, you said your colors were blue and yellow. You want to have a pin to give to your people who do teaching. They put it on, and they advertise your brand.
We're getting there.
A pin.
Pins cost money though, and we don't have
Very
money.
cheap. They're very cheap. You
Yeah,
can
no,
buy 100 of them for $10.
Yeah, we've actually been working on developing promotional products. It most likely is going to be relative to like books, like maybe a bookmark, or I don't know. We haven't even gotten that far in our thought process. We just got our cards done.
Your logo is a feather.
Yeah, it's a
Quill.
pen, it's a quill. Go ahead.
There's a DT Publishing. They gave me like 1,000 bookmarks for like $132. So
Oh, cool.
it was like, and you can put like so much information on it. And I was like, why am I looking at a bookmark? But I guess that works.
It's
too,
great,
but-
yeah. Who
but
doesn't need
yeah.
a bookmark? That's true.
People that don't read.
People that. Yeah, funny story. She's a writer. I love to read. I like to read.
I do like to read when I have the time to enjoy it, but time is a luxury that I really don't have.
So, and audiobooks are the latest thing for me.
Yeah.
Podcast. So here's what your takeaway is for today. Go back, go through all of the written collateral that you put together. Go through your emails. Like just do kind of like an email purge and see what is the language that I'm using. Right? What are these things? And then create a sheet and say, okay, these are the words that I like to use, and these are the words I want to use consistently for my brand. Because that's going to help develop your brand awareness. Okay? Same thing for your customers. If you're getting emails from customers asking for specific things, write down what are those words that your customers keep saying. Okay? Because you can keep using that and then incorporate it into your language as well to speak directly to them.
Because then you were now echoing your customer's value proposition by now incorporating their terminology into your vocabulary.
Yeah.
Right?
This is
And that's another
Yeah.
connected
My
to.
English teachers always used to say, when I ask you a question in the test, you start out by starting with the question itself and answering it as it goes.
Yeah.
It's the same
It also
thing.
helps boost your word count. Yeah.
Right.
Think of your voice as your handwriting. People are gonna identify you by your voice. And like for instance, it could be like your literal voice. Like if somebody calls you and they're like, "Hey, what's up?" You probably know if that's somebody you talk to every day. You know exactly who called you without even looking at the caller ID, because now we have caller ID. But you'll know if it's your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother, your best friend. Same thing with a grocery list. You find a grocery list thrown on your kitchen counter and you see scribble on it. You probably know whose handwriting that is, right? Especially if it's somebody who's close to you. So this is the power that the brand voice has, is you're gonna develop it so that people know exactly who's talking to them when they read it, okay?
So just to slow it down for a second, I want to repeat. So the takeaway for you guys, this is kind of like the homework, is go back and become reacquainted with things that you've already written, posts or blogs, the content on your site, and see if there's any kind of flow to it, if there's a pattern, if you start seeing, like she said, if you start seeing the same words or isms throughout. Everybody knows what I mean when I say isms, right? The Bobism. But and start to see, okay, what is this saying about me? Am I trying to sell a luxury brand, but I'm using slang terms? You know, maybe that doesn't connect, or maybe it does. I don't know. So depending on the product, depending on the service, you want to make sure that your language matches the products that you're selling. Okay. So that is, as you do this, go back through, look for patterns, look for isms, look for words that you just use, your little catchphrases and stuff that you use. But also, let's see, where was I going with this? Oh, create a style guide. So I said it a few minutes ago about the style guide. Has anyone heard of the AP style book?
Yes.
Okay, AP style. This is rules for writing. Okay, so if you are going to
There's
make reference
and
LA.
In Chicago.
right. Well, the reason I say AP is because that is writing for media. Okay, and that's really what we're talking about. Okay, we're talking about social media. We're talking about web content. Marketing materials. So when you're writing for the masses, this tells you, okay, if we're going to make reference to a lieutenant colonel, how do we abbreviate that in AP style? What's the appropriate way to do that? So it tells you, if the period goes inside or outside of the quote and how many commas to use, the Oxford comma, yay. But all the little quirks, how do you make reference to a date when you have limited character count? What's the best way to do it? Things like that. But for your brand, you want your own kind of style guide, okay? So that way, it's like a turnkey, and you can replicate that. If you hire someone on, they know what your color codes are. Like we just did this. It's a specific, pound FF00ED or something like that. That is exactly the blue that's on our card. I'm going to keep that blue throughout our website, throughout our branding, throughout our Facebook, throughout all of our marketing materials. But not only that, the font stays the same throughout. And again, going back to the language and the way that you make reference to things. If my course is titled "Writing Through Your Trauma," I'm not going to call it trauma writing, because that's not what it's called. It's called "Writing Through Your Trauma." So the consistency of how you make reference to things, again, it's going to go back to training your reader to get on board with your language, okay? So once you've done this little exercise, okay, create yourself a little cheat sheet in a way, so that way you can just go back to it anytime if you forgot, oh crap, what font did I use on this, or silly stuff like that. It just kind of creates that brand identity. Okay, and this is not a lesson on branding. That's a whole nother topic.
But this also goes like right now. A lot of you guys, if you're starting a business or in your early stages, you're probably doing a lot of this for yourself. It's DIY. But if you were to hire freelancers, like in our case, where we freelance for different companies, if we're going to go out and write something for a company, we're not using our voice. We have to use that brand's voice. So we have to know what words do they use. what aligns with their brand, because I might want to say like, hey girl, but my lawyer doesn't want to say that, right? So I have to know exactly what it is that their style guide has so that I can then do my job more efficiently and not waste their time asking them, you know? Okay.
Okay, can we do the next?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so number 2, your story is powerful, okay? So this is your pitch to your investors. This is your buy-in to your customers, okay? All of this is still relative to your story. This is your story, but these are the 3 important ingredients to that story. Your product story is not about the benefits and the features, okay? Data overload is just that. It's just data overload. There's no meaning behind that. So that's why you need the connectivity of a story. Stories are also memorable. Here's a statistic for you from Stanford University.
What you would call lowercase truth.
Lowercase truth, okay? Stanford University, stories are memorable with a multiplier effect. Stories are remembered 22 times more than facts. So imagine if you are trying to sell something, if you're trying to, drill home a point, whether it's activism or purchasing a product or selling your services, doing it in a story is going to cause that investor to remember that story better than they're going to remember all of your profit margins, blah, 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 and all of that stuff. It's important. It needs to be in your pitch if that's what we're talking about. But what they're going to take away, what's going to stick, is the story. Okay? And that's probably one of the more challenging parts coming from a technical-minded place that I live in, is developing the story. Because you're in business, Your business has a story. You have your origin story. Superheroes, okay? Every superhero has an origin story. So, Spider-Man just didn't, well, he actually did wake up as Spider-Man, but a really bad example. But there's an origin to
Well, Batman.
how he, yeah.
You know.
And usually there was some type of, and do I go into this next? Yes. So, favorite part, the hero's journey, okay? This is relative to the underdog story. This is the Dalmatian that wants to be a Budweiser Clydesdale. You guys remember that commercial? Where it goes through like a day in the life of the Dalmatian and he's like looking at them and he wants it, and then one day, boom, he's out there on the line. Whew, just gave myself the goosebumps. Anyway. I'm so dramatic. I'm sorry.
But they have the power to really
But that's,
those emotions.
yeah, that's the power of your story. So what I want to explain though about the hero's journey, okay? Does everybody know what a protagonist is? Does anybody not know what a protagonist would be? Okay, protagonist. You want your protagonist, okay, your brand, the origin of your brand, to have some type of conflict. And by that conflict, it's we started from nothing, and we overcame all of these obstacles, and now look where we are, right? That's your hero's journey. What are all the things that all the failures that you had before that final success? How many no's before your first yes?
We give an example of that at the first workshop that we did with the Under Armour commercial. I don't know how many, there were quite a few of you that were at the first workshop, but basically Under Armour has should I just show it really quick? No? We don't really have time. It's fine.
Not really time, but it's
Okay.
it's the one with what's her name?
Misty
Copeland.
You
And
guys
she's
should
talking
look
about
it up.
overcoming obstacles, overcoming
As
stereotypes.
a minority, as someone who didn't have the right body type, and she became this amazing ballerina, but she overcame all these obstacles. So that's the hero's journey, and that's Under Armour using this as an example for their brand and how they're the first to start actually showcasing ballet as a sport and considering it a sport, because ballet is a sport, but not everybody considers that a sport, right?
And then all I was going to say is that the conflict in your protagonist, that's what's going to have that emotional investment from your reader, from your viewer, from your customer. And I'm not talking about boo-hooing kind of emotional investment. This is, they want to cheer you on. They want to support you. Yes, they made it. This is awesome. I love this product. They're helping starving children. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. So, all of these things, the kid, he started out as this homeless kid on the streets, and now he's a multimillionaire who started an orphanage. that's a great hero's journey story, and it comes full circle, and it touches the hearts of your customers, right? Whether it has to do with, you know, that same person, okay, maybe that's their individual story, and maybe they sell shoes. What do shoes have to do with it? Well, a proceed of all sales goes back to the orphanage, right? So it doesn't have to be identical to the product you're selling. It just has to be something that's gonna tell a story, that's gonna have some sort of arc to it, and that's the, right, arc, whatever. And that's gonna make your customer feel like they can relate to that they can be emotionally invested with what it is you're trying to do, because an emotional investment is, I'm going through the checkout line, I have my grocery list, right? I haven't eaten, oh, I have a headache, I need some caffeine, oh look, candy bars, right? Candy bars, soda machine, right in the checkout line. That's an impulse purchase, right? Has nothing to do with how much money you have in your pocket, has nothing to do with all the stuff you've checked off on your list. You don't even think twice about, do I have the extra $2 to buy that soda right now? You know, am I gonna blow my budget with this? No, it's an impulse buy. And I'm not saying you want customers to be impulsive, because that doesn't build loyalty at all. But it's the same type of emotional investment. You
They
know?
always do like upsells, like on websites. I don't know if you guys noticed. Like you go to check and they're like, here's an upsell, and there's like a little box that gives you, why don't you buy this to go with this? And it's like a nominal amount, but you're saving money. There's a lot of different ways that you can do that.
We got our cards. When I went to checkout, save an extra, you know, or get 200,
10%
you get 200 more cards for $5 or whatever. And I'm like,
and
oh
you
my
might
god,
look
I
at
just got
it.
250
Yeah.
cards, I don't need more. But yeah, those type of things,
They seem
again,
nominal,
yeah,
but they're,
but
you
it's
know.
gonna still help, because it's still speaking to the emotion.
Did you look at this one?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna use that myself.
Yeah, but super
I'm
expensive.
still doing it. Okay.
And then, if you wanna go to the last piece, did I see a hand somewhere? Okay, someone was just stretching.
Okay, so we're doing stories, persuade, and influence, right?
Yeah.
So this is how you sell your product, service, and idea, right? So the protagonist is faced with the challenge and the conflict, and then there's this increased curiosity. So we were gonna kind of show one more example of, we were gonna show this before, but I'm gonna
Do you
show.
wanna close with it?
Okay.
Yeah, let's get through it and then show it as an example.
Okay, so basically you have anger equals action. So you want to encourage people in your writing to act. You're always going to want to have a call to action, especially if you're a brand. Like sign up for my email list, read more, find out more here, you know, join this list and get all of this free information. Whatever that is, the call to action is going to make people act. That's really what it comes down to. Then there's also activism. Activism is another thing that evokes emotion in people. So like talking to their heart, right? Are they angry about it? How do they feel? Like the Hallmark. How did Hallmark make you feel? It made you feel like, wow, you know, I could have done more with this person when, you know, before they died. What can I do to care more in my life, right? Send people a card. It's not a huge gesture, but it's something that's going to make me feel like I did more. Change. Leaving a job to start a business. That's another emotion. Click, donate, join. These are all different call to actions that you can have. None of this can happen if your audience or customer doesn't trust you though. And that's why trust is such a big part of this equation and why we started with that, because you have to develop trust at the very, very beginning. Because you can have all of these things, but if people don't trust you, at the end of the day, that they're not going to listen to you, they're not going to follow you, they're not going to buy from you, they're not going to listen to you. So there's really nothing.
Can I
you're gonna get out of that.
can I pitch it to you guys? Can anyone think of maybe a brand or an influencer that you really don't trust? Starbucks?
After the whole racism type, like I stopped shopping. I used to go there like all the time, but they have a black CEO now. They were trying to have scholarships and foundations to like recoup what they did and kind of backtrack. But for a while, I was just like,
Okay. So they lost your trust. They had your trust and they lost it.
They lost my
So they
pocket.
gotta work real hard to gain it back,
Yeah.
right? What's another example?
Walmart.
Wells Fargo.
Okay, explain.
The privacy breach. Okay.
Yeah, the privacy breach that they had. They were basically like taking all the accounts that they had and they were incentivizing their bank tellers and their managers to open more credit card lines on the current customers they had for checking accounts. And they were,
unbeknownst to the customers.
yeah, they
Right.
were incentivizing their managers that like, oh, if you get this many more lines of credit, like you get a raise, or you get like an extra $10,000 on your bonus.
Those men fried.
So that's
Yeah.
the integrity piece, right?
Yeah.
You trust your bank.
And let me let you go ahead.
Like Kim Kardashian, because a lot of those like big social media influencers don't have any like connection or have even tried the product. They're just like, oh, I'm getting paid to pose with it so that my like name is associated with it and my following's kind of used. So like things that they're promoting, like they don't even know if it works, you know what I mean?
So
They might not
celebrity.
stand behind it, things like that. And then like companies that just like put their money towards like things that you wouldn't believe in yourself.
So do you think that's why influencers have become so big that are like your average person and not celebrity influencers? Because people don't really think these celebrities actually are using the product, they're just getting paid. So that's why people are now they're leaning more on Instagram, follow people that have like only 700 followers, but that might mean more than somebody who has 7 million followers because those 700 know this person, trust this person, and believe this person.
It's authentic, yeah.
I don't trust Uber. I've been in Uber like 3 or 4 times, and every experience it seems like the driver's always trying to take the long route, or they always get lost. And then when I get my statement at the end, I'm like, that was not worth $47. You just took me off the street, you know, or something like that. Not to that extreme, but it's
Yeah.
always an extreme number where it's like that's not what I was quoted.
Yeah. We'll take one more.
I might have
Walmart.
taken my bill.
You used to be able to walk in your store and whatever you wanted was on the shelves. Now you walk in there and you
There's
look
nothing
and you
there.
find what you want.
Same thing with Best Buy. There's like nothing there.
There's nothing there anymore.
So why do you
Online.
think, yeah, I was gonna say, why do you think that is?
Amazon.
Pure purchase.
I think it's online, but I also think it's from a business perspective, right? Do you think it's more cost effective for them to not have as much inventory sitting on the shelves? Because isn't Walmart one that does first in, first out, something like that?
Yeah, first.
They all do first out. Well, FIFO is like unanimous only, especially restaurants and such.
They
Yeah,
do that
'cause it's like
especially
the,
with food and stuff.
Walmart.
Expiration dates and things like that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, if you go into there and you usually buy this product and that product and that product, you can't find any one of those three because the shelf is empty. They're not, their inventory, way of inventory is wrong.
Oh, wow.
Constantly. Yeah,
So-
I find it all the time.
We just want to close with one more quick video. I forgot what video it was. Most of you have probably seen this. I think it aired during the Super Bowl. It was very controversial. So we have about 5 minutes before we're going to get the hook, but anyone who wants to stick around to talk after,
Have you seen the
do
Happier
you have
music
someone
video?
coming right in after?
Which one?
All right.
Happier?
The happier from them?
No, from like Marshmallow.
No.
That's like a really powerful music video.
Yeah.
Oh, the video.
Yeah,
Oh, the
video.
music video. Yeah.
The music video. It's
Both my
about-
girls have seen it. I haven't seen
It's,
it.
like, it's a girl who gets like bullied and she gets a dog and her dog's her best friend and then eventually the dog dies and then she has to like, you know, deal with that traumatic experience, you know, and then it's like,
And music videos are another amazing example.
and then it ends with her like her dad buying the same dog for her kid and then like her dad, you know,
Aww.
realizing.
So we will, like I said, we'll wrap with this, but if anyone wants to stay for discussion or questions after your card. Yeah, we have them here, and if you guys kind of like hang around the building, we also have cards sitting in the back by the Operation Startup offices.
I put mine there.
Bullying. The Me Too movement against sexual masculinity. Is this the best a man can get? Is it? We can't hide from it. It's been going on far too long. We can't laugh it off.
What I actually think she's trying to say.
Making the same old excuses.
Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys.
But something finally changed.
Allegations regarding sexual assault and sexual harassment.
And there will be no going back. Because we believe in the best in men.
Men need to hold other men accountable.
Wow, sweetie.
Come on. To say the right thing. To act the right way.
Bro, not cool, not cool.
Some already are. In ways big
Yo, men.
and small.
I am strong.
But some is not enough.
That's how we treat each other, man.
Because the boys watching today will be the men of tomorrow.
Anybody want to comment on that?
It's ridiculous for Gillette to.
A lot of people are angry about it.
I mean, I like Ted Cruz. That's the only person that I'll,
So, I mean, yeah, it's a very
Yeah.
controversial video.
Boy,
I think they
well,
disrupted the market by identifying a problem that has nothing to do with their brand, but found a way to connect it together.
But do you think it has nothing to do with their brand?
In reality, in my opinion, I don't think it does, but they made it.
Because
they made
what's
it.
their slogan? What's their slogan and their tagline? The best a man can be, or get
No, the
can
best
get?
a man can
The
get.
best
Yeah,
a
but
man
that relates to like the best a man can get in razors.
in razors.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's not like-
hey,
like, no,
they're
but
latching on to a cause.
The best a man can get in like X. It's like we make razor blades. This is what we do. Right?
This
But they
is,
made it
they're
fit.
trivializing the cause, basically. This is like back in the day having, I don't know, like a deodorant brand latch on to the Civil Rights Act.
Right. It's
Silliness.
It's
This is compared to Mad Men.
Run for office.
Mad Men.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Okay. Next one would be
Thank you guys for coming. I hope everyone finds it.
cigarette scare. And rather than like Lucky Strike, they were like, no, you're not. You're not taking anything. You guys are toasting it. Right? Like, you guys are toasting, right? We're gonna take this thing and we're gonna spin it to where like yours doesn't cause cancer because it's toasted, right?
Yep.
I was really, like, honestly, I've never been big on the Me Too movement. I actually thought that it was like, ridiculous. But then when I looked at it, it made me think like, holy, like, I have two boys.
Yeah,
And
well, that's
if I'm an example, do I want that for my two boys?
Make sure that I have you sign in on this sheet or your ticket, okay?
Because
yeah,
but whether
sure.
or not Gillette needed to go there, or whether it's something that a brand
Ticket.
should do, I'm kind of on the fence about. It is a political.
Like I feel like
a
the new
political
thing
statement.
is political advertising, taking something that's like actually going on, trivializing it, and pandering and trying to sell product.
Really dive a little bit deeper into that, so I can't say, but.
Yeah.
I think it's provocative.
Oh yeah, it definitely gets your attention.
I mean, people are talking about
It
it.
gets your attention. Like I get that, but I'm like I feel like it's inauthentic, right? It's like pandering.
But remember the commercial for the wall that I think the wall did the commercial for the wall. But remember that where like the mother and daughter are trekking across the desert and they're sleeping and then they get to their destination on the wall. And then they're like, well, let's see what else and then there's a door to the wall. And it shows all the workers on the other side of the wall. They're Emily So one side of the house was all up in arms because it's the whole like build a wall movement. The other side of the house was like, this is what we're talking about, and where you put it the right way. But we had to get the main conversation, and that nobody talks about the wall. I mean, these are just style guys, right? Nobody talks about that. But then all of a sudden, people are talking about it. So sometimes you have to remember not to get negative attention.
Well, that's what you're doing. They're like that kid.
Yeah, so we went to their.
Yeah, they're talking. I think we're trying to and they're like, so I can get like 15,000 fans on Twitter. Generate like 50 million views
I think we need to separate from Me Too.
Right.
Because specifically the NFL, I'm offended by the NFL when the new part. No, they talk about when I played,
Well, I feel like those ads are exploitative, right? They're not
in the elevator, he was getting thrown out. And then the NFL was showing us commercials like we did something. I didn't do that. I didn't do that. Watch this, you should be showing this to your players. Not to me. You're making me feel like I didn't do it. There's no more television. Like, even before that happened, if I knew someone was being abused, I would put my best shot. Why are you trying to do that? Like, I'm doing it. So it puts all men in that same thing. I don't like that.
Weird, and I don't even remember what the ad is selling.
Like, they're just with all the guys.
Ready.
Men with power and influence they have more options.
We might even be able to have this do a workshop with storytellers because we're going to go to other meetings. So we're going to go into like storytelling stories or whatever. That are not just right.
They're like, oh,
They're like, watch TV, so the first time I've seen it. I guess, other things since the movie have come out, like, you know, there's some things in the military.
I'm from the culinary world, which is like.
My dad was